Everyone, Shannon Petrovich with Therapist Talks. Today we're going to talk about emotional intelligence. The 10 attributes of emotionally intelligent people and how to assess your EQ. In this video we'll talk about emotional intelligence and help you assess your own current state of EQ. This is a very big topic, so I've divided it into part 1, foundations 1 through 5, and then the next video will cover 5 through 10. When I worked with teens and horses, I realized that the primary gifts horses give us is actually to help us to develop emotional intelligence. They do this by requiring us to read their emotions through their body language. They also continually read us and react to our emotions, thereby reflecting those emotions back at us through their actions and reactions. And they don't read our surface emotions, they read the underlying emotion. If I go into a round pen with fear but cover it up with bravado, they read the fear and they respond or react accordingly. This feedback loop creates infinite opportunities to understand ourselves and others in much deeper and more complete ways. Horses also need us to be our best selves. We need to be caring, empathic, gentle, and yet assertive. We have to be resilient, willing to accept feedback and adjust, and to be able to give the most gentle communication all the way up to an insistent directive, matching our intensity to that of the horse, so that if the horse is sensitive and responsive, we will be careful and subtle in our communications, and if the horse is stubborn and dominant, we would be more assertive to make sure we did not get bullied. By working with horses, you find that over time you learn and strengthen these muscles until these emotional intelligences are kind of ingrained and active throughout all your relationships, whether horse or human. But truly, if you think about it, all of our relationships can act as these type of feedback loops. If we diligently notice others' communications with the underlying emotions, the most important thing, and not just the verbal communications, but all the nonverbals that we can read from people. And if we respond to them with conscious communication of our own, from the very subtle all the way up through assertive, and then notice how they are reacting in order to learn and grow in our own self-awareness and self-efficacy. Sadly, we get caught up in the complications of relationships and we lose out on these important lessons and critical information. So the term emotional intelligence became widely known with the publication of Daniel Goleman's book, Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ. That was published in 1995, and much more has been written about it since. So a lot of things have been written about why it's important in our personal relationships and our business lives. I'm not going to reiterate all that, but I'm instead going to focus on the foundations of exceptional emotional intelligence. In general, EQ seems to be universally understood as the individual's ability to process emotional information and use it to navigate the social environment. The following 10 foundational attributes of emotionally intelligent people. As we walk through this, ask yourself how you're doing in each of these areas so you can assess your own EQ. And then you'll know where to focus your attention as you work to boost your EQ. You may even want to grab a journal and keep some notes for yourself. The first foundation is introspection. Self-awareness and social awareness is not only how we see ourselves, but also how we perceive others to see us. This is interesting because in our independent culture, we fight this as codependent or weak or something. But let's go back to the horse. If I self-righteously relate to every horse with the same commands and the same intensity, I'm just a robot barking orders, and the horse, who's very relational, is not going to want anything to do with me. I have to get to know the horse, watch her, absorb what she's about, even empathize with her. Is she afraid, frustrated, confused? Then I would modulate my communications with her, taking into account how she learns, how she feels, and how she's receiving what I'm trying to communicate. And I would continually adjust. So why are we human relationships so different? The truth is we're not. When we connect and communicate with others, we need to watch, listen, notice what the other is feeling, notice if what we are saying is effectively communicating what we're intending, or is it making them afraid, confused, or frustrated? Then we should adjust accordingly so that we're connecting in the cleanest and clearest way possible. So as you assess your self-awareness and social awareness, ask yourself, Do you notice the emotions of others as you're talking with them? Not just the surface, but do you wonder and even ask the person what's going on under the visible emotion? Do you notice how you are being received by others? Do you seek to adjust your communications when you see you are being confusing or frustrating or causing fear or anxiety? Number 2 is empathy. Empathy is a critical foundation in emotional intelligence. It's the capacity to understand and feel what another person's experiencing from within their frame of reference. So it's related to self-awareness. It's not only the feelings we get in response to others' emotions, but also really understanding their perspective so that we can identify and understand really where they're coming from. If you're a naturally empathic person, you feel deeply, and sometimes you have to modulate your empathy so you don't get too drawn into others' emotions. But if you're not empathic, did you know that empathy can be cultivated and learned through all of our experiences? It's about seeking to connect, finding commonality above all else, and not judging or labeling. It means not necessarily agreeing with another person's point of view, but really striving to see their perspective, and that allows you to build deeper, more connected relationships. If we're truly empathizing with others, we will naturally be true to the golden rule of treating others in the same way we want to be treated. As you assess your own empathy level, do you seek to understand the other's point of view and emotions, or are you always thinking about what you're going to say next? Are you trying to put yourself in their shoes to feel what they may be feeling so that you can get where they're coming from and find resolution? Or are you more focused on winning the debate or argument or conflict? Are you trying to find common ground, the best compromise, or the richest collaboration? Or are you jumping to judgment in your mind, finding fault, belittling, and putting yourself outside of them? The third foundation is humility. Humility is not about being less than. In fact, it's about being right-sized. I love that because it reminds us that we are each special and important and the same size as every other who is special and important too. We are neither king of the hill nor are we garbage on the street. Humility is a fundamental foundation of EQ because arrogance is so destructive to connection, to relationships, to being able to see yourself and your actions accurately, or to learn or grow. But also, feeling and believing you're not important at all is just as destructive to relationships, connectedness, and growth. If you are constantly degrading yourself, putting yourself down, and putting yourself under everyone else, you can't connect with others in healthy ways. Humility says that all input and feedback, even negative and even when not delivered in the most loving way, is a chance to learn. People who are humble can apologize and take responsibility and accountability without feeling they're going to shatter. It takes strength and courage to be able to say you're sorry. And doing so clears the field for true reconciliation and repair of the relationship, whether it's personal or professional. When you take ownership of your part, the other person is naturally less defensive and more willing to look at their part, and resolution can be found. People often have the mistaken belief that the worst thing in the world is to admit your part in the conflict. Truly, the worst thing is to break a relationship over something silly, and honestly, many of the things I see people breaking relationships over are very silly. Admitting your part means you value the relationship, that other person's perspective, and their emotions over your own ego. Humor is closely related to humility, and it can be the best thing to help us through challenging relationship hurdles. When we can look at ourselves and laugh at our foibles and humanness, we really can learn and grow in EQ so much more effectively. As you assess your humility, do you tend to think of yourself in healthy humanness? Are you perfectionistic towards yourself and others? Do you expect too much and then feel like garbage or trash others when you can't be perfect or they're not perfect? Are you arrogant towards others so that they feel intimidated or less than you in your presence? Or are you humble, connectable, able to see your strengths and challenges and accurately and laugh at your humanness? Number 4, strengths focused. Staying strengths focused is critical to EQ. This means for you and for others. In my work with clients, I search for and mirror the client's strengths. The client who is struggling in many areas of their life is also doing other things pretty well. It's part of my job to find and reflect back those strengths, and then to generalize those strengths to help them utilize those in other areas of their struggles. When you focus on others' strengths, and when you appreciate and acknowledge those strengths to them out loud, you not only connect with them through their best qualities, but they feel known and cared about. This is such a basic and important human need that it can make or break our relationships. When we feel known, cared about, and appreciated, this is like the soil, water, and sunshine for the human spirit. When you focus on the good in others, then share specifically what you appreciate, you inspire them to be their best version of themselves. And guess what? When you focus on the good in yourself and appreciate yourself inside rather than always beating yourself up, you can grow into the best version of you too. So be positive in your feedback, appreciating the person's strengths while offering input on something you'd like to have them look at differently. An example might be, I really appreciate how open and honest you are with me in our conversations. When our emotions get intense, I find myself getting more defensive, so if we can sit down and talk in calmer tones, it will be easier for me to listen to what you're saying. So in this way, you reframe the criticism as constructive feedback, so the person sees it as helpful rather than harmful, and collaborative instead of blaming or critical. These skills help prevent a lot of resentments that people grow in their relationships. When we're positive, appreciative, and frame feedback in ways that are helpful, resentments don't poison our relationships. As you assess your strengths focus, do you notice and build on others' strengths? Do you notice and build on your own strengths? Do you see your struggles as challenges and opportunities to learn and grow, or do you tend to label your struggles as failures and wallow in them? Do you notice and build up those around you? Or do you focus on their problems and put them down? Even when we put them down inside our own heads or behind their backs, this is focusing on the negative and on their weaknesses, and it builds on our own judgmental nature. And number 5, trust in your BS meter. Emotionally intelligent people recognize when others attempt to manipulate their emotions to promote their own personal agenda or for some other selfish cause. Because we are noticing the underlying emotions of a person, we are able to see their underlying agendas too. Being able to see this and to confront it or distance yourself from that person with good boundaries is to continue to sharpen your own emotional intelligence and to protect yourself from manipulation and others' control of you. Do you listen to your BS meter? When others are judgmental or manipulative, do you stand your ground, refuse to be bought in? Or do you second guess yourself and get caught up in others' drama? That's it for this video. In the next video, we'll go through Foundations 6 through 10. If you appreciated this video, please like it, share it, subscribe to the channel, and leave comments, questions, or suggestions for future videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.